From a very young age, I had a gift for wandering. The urge to explore new places alone made me seem like a strange student to others. I remember visiting the oldest cemetery in my town, reading epitaphs just to pass the time. I was brave and I valued freedom more than anything else in the world. My mother, extremely strict, had shut herself off from all joy after my father left her for another woman. She trusted no one. Despite all my love and compassion for her, her overprotective nature slowly suffocated me. Inspired by a movie and triggered by personal trauma at home, I decided to leave forever. I saved money from small jobs and secretly took a little cash from my mother's wallet. I left a note, packed my tent, and hit the road. Most of the time, I walked. When I couldn't go any farther, I hitchhiked. I worked for anyone willing to pay me a little money and give me food. Life was hard, but it was better than living in that house. I thought I would keep going like that until this event happened. After 8 months working in a garage, I saved enough money to see Angel Falls in Canema Park. It's in South America, and I planned to go hiking there. I had always loved the mix of deep forests and towering mountains. Visiting that place wasn't easy, since the waterfall is located deep in an isolated jungle, and me, underage and on the run. It wasn't ideal for traveling somewhere like that, but I needed solitude, so I believed I could manage on my own. I bought supplies and water, then started the hike early in the morning. Tall green mountains stood watch like guardians over a dreamlike world. I had never heard so many species of birds singing at the same time. The sound of the jungle mixed with the wind created a unique atmosphere around me. I carried a map because beyond a certain point, GPS no longer works in such remote places. I planned to reach my destination quickly, then return before nightfall. I knew how deep and wild these woods were. Staying after dark would be disastrous for a lone traveler. After 2 hours of walking, when I arrived, the sun was directly overhead. The sound of tons of water crashing down the mountain was indescribable. Angel Falls stood before me in all its majestic glory. I took photos and dipped my foot into the crystal clear water flowing below. It was freezing cold. I splashed water on my face and hands from the falls. It was noon, so I still had time before heading back. The sounds of the wild forest made me feel deeply connected to nature. I pulled out a sandwich I had brought with me. I had taken only 2 or 3 bites when I heard a deep metallic sound echoing in the distance. It sounded like someone striking a massive gong with all their strength. I stood up and started walking toward where the sound came from. Pushing plants aside, I forced my way through the dense jungle. After walking for half an hour, I got frustrated and decided to turn back. I was halfway when a large drop of water fell from the sky. I looked up, an enormous flash of lightning struck, and a heavy rain poured down. I ran back, but dark clouds quickly swallowed the sun, and a violent storm broke loose. I struggled to find my way for another half hour. I had no choice but to shelter under a large tree, which was extremely dangerous during a storm. When the rain finally weakened, the jungle slipped into its nighttime life. Crickets chirped alongside frogs and countless unfamiliar insects. A wild owl hooted from a high branch nearby. That's when I realized I was lost. I was terrified, but I calmed myself and thought about how to survive the night safely in this massive forest. That was when I heard the gong again, followed by a soft humming of multiple voices. It sounded like they were chanting a strange prayer. With no other option, I followed the sound. After 10 minutes, I noticed a small light glowing in the darkness. I walked toward it and found myself standing before a pagoda-style monastery. The light came from a small lantern mounted beside the entrance. I knocked on the large wooden door. There was no response, not even the sound of footsteps. I knocked again, this time harder. A muffled whisper came from the other side. Then, footsteps slowly approached the door with a long creak. The door finally opened. At first, I saw nothing but complete darkness inside. Slowly, a pair of gray glowing eyes appeared within the shadows. I would have screamed if the owner of those eyes hadn't stepped forward immediately. A tall man, dressed like a monk in a white robe, stood before me. I'm a traveler, lost in the storm, I stammered. If I could come inside, please. We would be honored, he replied. I followed him into the monastery. A long corridor stretched ahead, lined with candle holders on the walls. By the candlelight, I could see the immense ceiling, intricately decorated. This place is so strange, I thought to myself. He led me into a small room to rest, offering me a red robe to change in. All my clothes were soaked from the rain. I cleaned myself up and lay down on the bed. I felt relieved that I had finally found shelter. An hour later, there was a knock at my door. I jumped up and said, "Who is it?" The same man entered calmly. "Prophet Denizen is ready to receive you. Please follow me." He led me into a large hall arranged like a refectory. Small tables with chairs were neatly placed around the room. 4 monks wearing the same white robes were seated there, and at the center stood a man dressed in red, just like me. He stood up and walked toward me. The upper part of his face was hidden beneath his red hood. He spoke in a calm voice, thanking me for coming here. "I could never repay your debt." "Debt?" I said. What debt?" The first man spoke again, saying that Prophet Denizen thanked me because I was going to save his life. "We, the Denishans, are also grateful to you." "What are you talking about?" I snapped. "How am I supposed to save his life? 'Cause you are going to complete me." My legs went numb when I saw Prophet Denizen's face. Half of his face was rotting away. Maggots crawled along the edges of his eye sockets. A thick, nauseating stench flooded the air inside the room. "My God, what is happening? Who are you?" I screamed, stepping backward. Suddenly, 2 men in white robes lunged at me and slammed me against the wall. The man who had opened the door earlier returned, dragging in a heavily drugged teenage boy, about my age. He handed the unconscious boy to Prophet Denizen. Denizen grabbed the boy by the shoulder and lifted him into the air. What happened next traumatized me for life. Denizen opened his mouth impossibly wide, stretching it almost to his chest, and began swallowing the boy's head like a massive serpent. He tore the head clean from the boy's neck and started chewing, blood pouring from his enormous mouth. Everyone in the room laughed as their prophet devoured the boy like a piece of meat. Then he looked at me, and I knew I was next. But something shocking caught my attention. Half of Denizen's face was coming back to life, as if eating the boy had pumped blood and flesh into his decaying wounds. I understood then that this man was a demon from hell, and the others were his worshippers. I turned around and ran toward the exit. They all chased after me, and I heard Denizen screaming, "Bring him back. He's the last one I need. Beg the devil, bring him back." I sprinted down the corridor, through the main door, and straight into the jungle. I left my clothes and phone behind in the monastery and ran like an animal, wearing only that robe. When I could no longer run, I collapsed onto the muddy ground. When I woke, the sun was already shining overhead. The night before felt like nothing more than a horrific nightmare. I was covered in mud and dead leaves. A large wound marked my forehead. I must have hit something when I passed out the night before. I never went back. I still don't know how I managed to make it down the mountain. A kind villager eventually brought me to the nearest hospital. Later, I learned from the locals that deep within that jungle once existed a cult called the Denishans. Their prophet Denizen had died one day, and his followers began a gruesome voodoo ritual to resurrect him. Young boys from nearby villages started disappearing mysteriously. The villagers believed Denizen's disciples were sacrificing them to bring their master back. They begged and prayed to the devil, but the villagers soon became furious. One night, they burned the entire monastery down, with the cult members screaming inside. Since then, anyone who ventures there after nightfall is trapped by their haunted spirits and vanishes forever. I don't know if what I experienced that night was real or imagined, but I still have the red robe they gave me. It chills me to the bone to know that robe marked me as the sacrificial lamb for a demon from hell. That red robe is still in my closet. But you don't need demons to experience hell. Sometimes the scariest monsters smile and promise you peace. If you're brave enough to face the truth, hit subscribe right now. Next is Blake. He didn't believe in ghosts, but he learned that humans can be much worse. I didn't really understand the excitement, I thought to myself, as I watched my co-workers enthusiastically discussing potential travel destinations after we were just granted 4 weeks of vacation. My name is Blake White, and in 31 years of life, I had never truly understood the appeal of traveling. In fact, I saw it as a waste of time, preferring to devote myself entirely to work. After work that day, I went home with my friend Matt, and we started talking. So, any vacation plans, Blake? Yeah, I said. I'm seeing my doctor. I've got an appointment tomorrow. Matt laughed and continued. Listen, Blake, I know you don't like traveling, but it's actually great if you give it a chance. Let me know if you change your mind. We could go somewhere together. After a while, I finally got home and said goodbye. Lying in bed that night, I knew my opinion on traveling wasn't going to change. But I had no idea that the very next day, I would buy my first ticket for an unforgettable solo trip. The next morning, I went to my medical appointment. I'd been experiencing heart pains for weeks and decided to get it checked. My doctor ran some tests, and according to the results, my non-stop work had caused severe stress. He advised I slow down. Then he recommended taking a vacation, a trip to unwind. I know you have time off. Maybe find a resort or a spa and take time to take care of yourself. That night, I realized my health came first. I started browsing the internet and quickly came across an article. The article talked about a place called the Serene Resort. It was located deep in nature with a slogan that read, "Find the peace and calm you desperately need." I read more about it, and every review was excellent. So, without wasting any time, I booked a plane ticket to leave the very next day. When I arrived at the resort, I noticed the environment was beautiful and serene. I spent the first week doing yoga and meditation activities, and even though I did everything properly, I realized it wasn't helping. I was still stressed. I decided to keep trying, so I stayed another week. By the third week, I was shocked to see my friend Matt arrive at the resort. Made it here, man. I heard you came because of stress, so I figured I'd keep you company on your solo trip. Even though it was supposed to be a solo trip, I was glad to see my friend Matt, because I needed the company. We spent the third week taking part in many activities and having an incredible time together. When the fourth week arrived, I knew it would soon be time to go back to work. And even though my stress level had dropped a little, I knew I still needed to relax more. One Wednesday afternoon, a man approached me and started a conversation. "Are you Blake?" "Yes, that's me." "Is there a problem?" "No. I just heard you came here to relax, and that the other activities don't really work for you." I was a bit unsettled that he knew this, since I had never seen him before, but I continued anyway. "Yeah, man, don't get me wrong. I'm a little more relaxed, but most of the activities don't really help me. Well, you're in luck. I'm taking a group of 10 people to the cliff today. We're going to do anti-stress activities. Think of it as advanced yoga. I felt uneasy, unsure if I should accept, but I wanted to improve my health so I could return to work. So I agreed, telling myself the man was probably part of the resort staff. Around 1 p.m. that day, a group and I went to the cliff to take part in the activity. I didn't tell Matt because he was busy with something else at the resort. I left him a note telling him where I had gone, just in case he looked for me. The activity began, and the man asked us to stand up and meditate. We all did exactly as he ordered. After 20 minutes, I saw the man pull out a strange powder from his pocket and blow it into each person's face. I found it odd, so I asked, "What is that powder?" "No worries. Just kidding," he said. "It's just a special powder that helps you relax and clear your mind." I wasn't a yoga expert, but I could tell something was off about that powder. That's why when he approached me to blow it in my face, I stepped back slightly so I wouldn't inhale all of it. When he was done, the man smiled widely, and shortly after, I started to feel dizzy and uncomfortable. I looked around and noticed the blank expressions on everyone's faces. I tried to move, but I couldn't. My legs felt heavy like solid lead. My heart began racing because I knew something was terribly wrong. As my anxiety rose, the strange man leading the activity began to speak. "You are all idiots, fools. Don't you have anything better to waste your money on than things you will never truly obtain? I was a child when I realized there is no peace or serenity in this insane world, and that no activity or meditation can bring the peace you're all searching for." The man sounded unhinged as he spoke, and I knew he had used the powder to do something to us. I tried to scream, but my mouth wouldn't open. I struggled to move my body, but it was useless. I was trapped against my will. The strange man continued his speech. Since you want it so badly, I will generously give you all the peace you're looking for. And the only way to achieve it is eternal sleep." When he said eternal sleep, fear flooded my body, and I prayed it meant something else. The man pointed at the first woman and said, "Go to the edge and fall." I watched in horror as the 25-year-old woman walked to the edge of the cliff and jumped like an obedient child. One by one, he ordered them to jump to their deaths, while the sound of their bodies hitting the bottom echoed everywhere. I was the last person he ordered me to jump, and as if by magic, I felt my body begin to move. I fought against the force pushing me to obey, but it was hopeless. There was nothing I could do. I heard the man who ordered me to jump laughing as he walked away. My legs carried me to the edge of the cliff, and I realized I never imagined I would die without being able to stop it. I felt my legs ready to jump, and I had already accepted my fate, but just before I could throw myself into the void, strong hands grabbed me and pulled me backward. I looked up and saw my friend Matt staring at me in confusion before he shouted, "What the hell are you doing, man?" I wanted to answer, but a sharp pain shot through my chest, and within seconds, everything went black. I woke up at the resort with the doctor and Matt beside me. The doctor told me to stay lying down and rest because I had just suffered a cardiac arrest. Shortly after, several resort officials came in, and I told them everything. I asked them if they knew why I tried to kill myself against my will, and they told me I had been a victim of a drug called Devil's Breath. The drug comes from the borrachero plant and has effects similar to scopolamine. When used, the victim loses all free will and becomes like a docile animal. They explained it's mostly used by thieves to steal bank cards and empty accounts, but it's rarely used as a deadly weapon. Authorities added that in recent years, several bodies had been found at the bottom of the cliff, and tests revealed traces of devil's breath in their systems. They told me that with my testimony, an investigation would be opened, but to my knowledge, the killer has still never been found. That incident made me question many aspects of my life. I work less than before now because I've started taking more time for myself. That near-death experience made me realize how precious my life is and how important it is to live it and take care of it.